Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of UFC Casuals. I'm Bobby with my co-host Andrew, and today we're going to be looking back at UFC 287. Adesanya gets his revenge. Jorge Masvidal calls it a career. Great card overall. A lot to talk about. And we're going to get straight into the main event. We're going to get into Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. And as an Adesanya fan, I was nothing short of excited. That was incredible. My voice, you might be able to tell, it's still pretty gone right now. Because I was loud.
We were hyped. We were definitely hyped. I was in shock. You were going crazy. I had to get up and match your energy a little bit there. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. I did not see that as a path to victory for Adesanya, really. So it was amazing fight, really.
Yeah, if you would have told me there had been a round 2 knockout, my hopes would not have been high. I would not have expected, especially with the situation that Izzy was in, where he was backed up against the cage. Pereira was starting to tee off on him. He landed a big knee, landed a nasty body shot, and he was loading up that left. He had that left, but Adesanya touched him. That wasn't the shot that knocked him out, but he hit him just enough to slow that left down, and then he caught him real quick with the right, followed it up with another right. Mind you, the same right hand that almost put him out in round 1 of the last fight. Yeah. This time he was able to finish the job.
Yeah, he had enough time to land a second right hand. Wasn't seconds left in the round. And hey, we just got to say, that second round could not have been going worse the first 4 minutes for Israel Adesanya. I mean, in our preview, we said, protect your legs. Do not get that leg compromised like in the first MMA fight. And that leg was compromised again. He was on the back foot again, just like what got him finished in the first fight. And like you said, that the giant combo that Pereira was landing against the fence. But hey, Izzy says he was playing possum. He loads up that big right hand off the jab, and he rocked him bad.
Yeah, bad. And I do think he was playing possum to an extent. I think he was trying to bait him in because that's what his game is. He is a counter striker. That's where he excels. So I do think he was trying to rope him in and get him to, fall into his trap a little bit, but he was hurt. That is undeniable. Those leg kicks were doing damage, and that's what lost him the last fight. And when he was back up against the cage like that again, I thought I was getting shades of the last fight. I was like, all right, his leg's compromised. He can't get out of this situation. Pereira's just going to start teeing off. But this time he had, I guess, more gas in the tank, and he knew what to do in the situation compared to last time. And he loaded that big right hand up and just bombed him. I mean, it was nasty. And the second one landed, he was out cold. I can't tell you how excited I was. That was probably the best night I've had of watching UFC. So that was incredible. That was truly incredible. So great fight, but looking forward to the future for these two guys. A lot of questions, especially on Pereira's side. Is he going to move up to 205? Will he stick around at middleweight? And who will he fight if he moves up? What do you think?
I think it comes down to what Israel Adesanya wants to do next. I mean, and he's alluded to in the post-fight, hey, I'm kind of done with this, rivalry, right? This is the last time I want to fight him, maybe he said Alex Pereira needs to go get some wins if he wants to, get back and get another title shot against him, which I think is fair. Mm-hmm. He got an immediate title shot, but he was coming off of 8 straight defenses or whatever it was, so he earned an immediate rematch. Alex Pereira only has 9 MMA fights, 4 in the UFC. So he needs to, if Pereira wants to stick around at middleweight, he needs to beat a top contender before he deserves a rematch.
Yeah.
So I think he needs to go at 205, personally.
I'm with you. And I think whether it's at 185 or 205, I think either way he's going to have to fight a contender before he gets a title shot, because he was fast-tracked to that middleweight title shot. That wasn't something he had worked his way up the ranks for. His best win was against Sean Strickland, and he made it look pretty easy, to be fair. But not the most impressive win. And if the storyline wasn't there, he wouldn't have got that middleweight shot. So I do think he needs, whether he moves up to 205 or whether he stays at 185, I think either way he does need to get some better wins under his belt before he gets another title shot.
Yeah, I mean, every person that's ever earned, usually, I mean, I say that Colby Covington hasn't beat anybody in the top 5, and it's looking like he's getting a shot. But most people have to beat some people in that top 5 before they're just given a title shot. And Alex Pereira, as good as he is, we know how good he is. I mean, he looked great in this fight before he got knocked out, and he won the title. He's a champion in the UFC. I think Izzy said you can never take that away from him. He is a UFC champion no matter what. So, I mean, he's clearly a beast, right?
Yeah.
But show us how big of a beast you are. Go beat some top 5 contenders.
Yeah.
And then you'll really earn a title shot.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you there. I think his next fight is probably going to be against top 5 light heavyweight contender. I do think he moves up, and I think he'll get that title shot at light heavyweight. It'll come with some work, but I think he gets there. I think he's a great fighter. I do think his wrestling defense needs to improve. I don't think anybody will really argue that. But his power is undeniable. He can knock out anyone with his left hook. So I think he'll get back to that title shot eventually, but I think it'll be a light heavyweight.
Yeah, I think there's some guys in that top 5 at light heavyweight that make sense for him, whether it be, like an Anthony Smith or Jan Blachowicz, guys that probably aren't looking to take him down. They'll have that pride, that power they feel they have that can compete with him. And they think they can probably knock him out after seeing what Adesanya did to him, right? So those are fun fights, and I think that's what should be next for him. Yeah,
absolutely. And then for Adesanya, I think what he needs is some time off, obviously, because either one of his next 2 fights that are possible, I think it'll either be Duplessis or Khamzat. And the Duplessis fight would only make sense if it's in UFC Africa, which that won't be for a little while. And then Khamzat's probably going to fight in October against Paulo Costa. Mm-hmm. So I think, give him some time to heal up too. It took a lot of damage to the legs of this fight. I don't think he had the chance to really fully recover either from the last fight against Pereira. So I think some time off and then a fight against either Duplessis or Khamzat is in his future.
Yeah, I mean, it was a quick turnaround from his last fight with Pereira. I mean, it was only 5 months after getting TKO'd. And he, even after the fight, he said, hey, I had some injuries that need to be addressed. He didn't want this fight, really, I don't think, only 5 months later. So I think he'll definitely take time after this amazing win. I mean, it's the best win of his career. He's going to sit back. He's going to see how middleweight unfolds because there's not a lot of contenders left for him. Like you said, I mean, there's only 2 guys that he hasn't fought yet.
Yeah.
And Khamzat, who has never even had a fight at middleweight.
Exactly.
At least he's had a fight at middleweight, but he's never fought any contenders at middleweight. So, I think fight Paulo Costa Khamzat. That's a great fight, a good contender. And if he wins that, then boom, make the Khamzat fight. I'd like to see Duplessis fight again before he just gets that shot. So, but those are the 2 guys that make sense.
I don't think Duplessis has earned a title shot yet, but with Izzy calling him out and there being a lack of anyone else for him to fight, really. Not a lot of options, to be honest. I think he would make quick work of Duplessis. Maybe not quick work, but he'd handle him pretty easily. Duplessis' last 2 wins aren't that impressive. I mean, it's against Darren Till and Derek Brunson. And the Derek Brunson win wasn't impressive in the slightest. I mean, he was starting to look gassed against Derek Brunson in the last fight of his career, which is ridiculous.
And he looked gassed in the Darren Till fight, too. I mean, there's clearly a gas tank problem here, and that is not a problem for Israel Adesanya. He's never looked too gassed, so he would wear him down for sure. I don't see that being competitive.
Not at all. But the champ is back. Israel Adesanya, the new middleweight champion, once again, and we'll see how he does. Contender Izzy is no more. Obviously, we've seen his most entertaining fights as a contender, but we'll see how he does in his second stint as champ, see if he can get another streak going, and maybe give us some cool highlights. We'll see. Moving on to the co-main event, Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal's final fight. What did you make of this one?
I mean, it went about just as I feel like everybody expected, right? The pace of Gilbert Burns. And we even talked about, hey, if this does stay standing, he's a good striker too. And in that 3rd round, he was wearing Jorge down. Jorge was tired and slow, and Gilbert was landing some big shots. So he could have got a finish in this fight. I mean, the 1st round, it was kind of slow, but then he got that takedown at the end of the 1st, which I thought won him that round. This is a pretty clear 3-0 for Gilbert Burns. Maybe you could even make the 3rd round a 10-8. I mean, it was looking pretty rough for Jorge there, and domination like we expected.
Yeah, round 1 was pretty slow, and then round 2, the wrestling picked up for Burns, and that tired out Masvidal, and then he just coasted the rest of the way pretty easily, picking him apart on the feet. Clear decision win for Burns. I don't think there's any debate about that one. And I don't want to trash Masvidal too much on from my perspective, because I mean it is the last fight. He's like 38, so I wasn't expecting to see the best version of himself, but it didn't look terribly good.
He didn't look his best version in his past few fights. Whether we got knocked out by Usman, and Colby Covington just completely wore him down for 5 rounds. I said that in the preview. He looked tired and worn down against a wrestler like Colby Covington. What's Gilbert Burns going to do to this guy? And he did just about what we expected, I'd say.
Looking back on our predictions for this fight, I had Burns by decision.
Yeah.
Pretty predictable. I'm not gonna go and throw a parade over that. That was the most difficult prediction of my life. But yeah, got that one. What about you?
I also had Burns by decision. I mean, like we said, we thought he'd win all 3 rounds. He won all 3 rounds, completely wore that old man down.
Yeah. I didn't mention it, but looking back on our predictions for the main event fight, I had Pereira by round 4 TKO. Couldn't be happier to be wrong. My main event jinx continues.
There you go.
That streak is still alive, thankfully. What'd you have?
Always bet against Bobby in the main event. If you're a betting man, bet against him. But yeah, I also had Pereira by finish. I had it 3rd round. For some reason in this fight, I just knew they'd start fast. In that fight, I knew they'd start faster than they did in the first fight. It was slow pace in that first fight. I thought they'd come out and bang, and I didn't think it would be Israel Adesanya landing the big shot that knocked somebody out cold. So I was wrong.
Yep. So I guess next up for Burns, I think we had talked about this off air earlier. I guess he's the backup for Colby and Leon, probably.
If that fight happens.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't know what his future holds. Good win for him, but nothing to go crazy about. So I guess he'd be the backup for that fight.
I think he's ready for a number 1 contender fight for sure. Yeah. Whether it be like a Bilal Muhammad, right? That makes sense. Probably someone like that. Shavkat, someone that's ready for a number 1 contender fight. I think Gilbert Burns is completely ready. So yeah.
All right. So moving on to the 3rd fight of this card, Yanez versus Font. 2 good boxers in this one. Font got the better of Yanez though. A round 1 knockout for him. Not what I expected to see. Yanez landed some clean shots though. He had Font looking pretty bruised up after the fight, but ultimately it was Font who landed the big shot that put him out. What'd you make of this one?
He did give Font a big old black eye on the left eye, but it was no match. He was not landing the big. He never landed that big right hand. Like the jabs were landing for both men, and like we said, he did give him a shiner, but Rob Font, that combo to knock him down, it was a giant right hook that ended up putting him down, and then in some nice ground and pound finished it. I wasn't expecting it. We'll talk about our predictions in a second, but Rob Font, man, older guy, took some damage in his last few fights, but he did not look slow. He looked better than he has in a while.
Absolutely. A lot of people thought he'd be. They're just kind of feeding him to a younger prospect in Yanez, giving Yanez like a prove it fight. But it was Font who looked really good, and Font who came out on top. So a great win from him. And yeah, I had my prediction was Yanez by round 2 knockout. Way off on that one. What did you have?
I had that as well. So
okay. 0 for 2. 0 for 2. We can't get them all right though. Moving on. We got Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. That fight went about as I expected to. Holland, he kept it at his range. He had that huge reach advantage. He's so lengthy. But he didn't use the right hand a lot because of the effects of the Wonder Boy fight still being broken, still healing from that. And I know that Holland, he fights a ton. He's very active. But I think some time off would probably be good. But regardless, great win for him. Great knockout win. What did you make of this?
Yeah, like you said, he mentioned in the post-fight press conference, his hands weren't feeling 100%. In training, his hands still weren't 100%. And he was wondering if he should have pulled out from this fight. And afterward, he also said, hey, I wasn't throwing 100% with all my strikes. He wasn't letting that right hand go like he usually does. He was utilizing the front kicks and leg kicks a lot more. But Ponzinibbio was the slower guy. He landed some big leg kicks, but, he just looked like the older fighter, not as twitchy and fast as Kevin Holland. And Kevin Holland outstruck him and then got a nice knockout in the 3rd round.
Yeah, Holland looked better on the feet. He was a lot quicker, like you said. And the reach advantage was so huge. And that's what won him the fight ultimately, because he hit him with that left where he was where Ponzinibbio was falling back, but he just got it out far enough to connect, and that's what put him out. So good win for Holland. I guess probably a top 15 fight next. That's what I'd imagine, but hopefully after some time off to let that hand heal.
I'd like to see him fight somebody coming off a loss, like a Jeff Neal or a Vicente Luque, just someone in that top 15. Get Kevin Holland back in that top 15. He's clearly a top 15 fighter, even without a number by his name, in my opinion. So, give him somebody like that, and I'll be happy.
Awesome. My prediction for this fight was Holland by round 3 knockout. So the 2 that I got right also had the method and round right. So yeah, solid prediction there. What did you have?
So I said Kevin Holland would knock him down and then get a submission. So, hey, he did knock him down. I got that right. But he, unfortunately, for my prediction's sake, and then he did not take his back and go for a submission. He got some ground and pound in there and finished him. So
hey, it was a long shot. It was a bold prediction. I liked it though. I liked it. You never know what can happen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I can't hate it.
Wanted to go outside the box a little bit.
Yeah. So moving on to the first fight of the card, we had Raul Rojas and Christian Rodriguez, the 18-year-old prospect, suffers his loss in his second UFC fight. Round 1 looked good for him. He won round 1 pretty clearly. His wrestling looked great, but he just got out. He didn't look like he was strong enough in round 2 and 3, and he just got bullied on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, young fighter, not as much experience. Maybe he wasn't used to going into later rounds like that, rounds 2 and 3, where cardio is so important. And he is such a wrestling-based fighter that, and he probably was looking too hard maybe for a submission in that first round. He tired his arms out going for that rear naked. Mm-hmm. And, hey, that can severely alter your game plans going into round 2 and 3. It didn't alter his, but he also just wasn't as strong anymore. He looked tired, and Christian Rodriguez, the more experienced, older fighter, even though he's 25 too, that's a lot of experience over an 18-year-old. He out wrestled him for rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, despite the loss, I will give Ross some credit. He did have some good scrambling on the ground to avoid those submissions. He was always moving around. Always, he climbed on the cage a lot to kind of reverse out of like potential submissions. So I'll give him credit there. That looked good, but yeah, he just didn't look strong enough in rounds 2 and 3. Didn't look like he was ready for it. And still a lot of room to improve, a lot of time, of course. But, hey, man, it is what it is. Good win for Rodriguez, though.
Yeah, I don't want to call it a fraud check, right? I mean, he's an 18. Yeah. So we're not going to call him a fraud for 1 loss. I mean, if he's looking to become the youngest UFC champ ever, he's still got 4 years to do it. I mean, that's how young he is. So plenty of time to improve, and he shouldn't, down himself too much for this.
Yeah, don't need to go back to high school quite yet. I think he'll be all right. So I think he'll be good for now. Youngest champ is still a possibility. I wouldn't bet on it, but hey, man, who knows? He could go far. We'll see.
Yeah.
And then the fight of the night was Gastelum and Curtis, 3-round battle to close out the prelims. Went to a split decision, and Gastelum came out on top. So yeah, that's what I have on that one. What'd you make of that fight?
Yeah, Chris Curtis, he came on strong at the end of that fight, and it was looking like, I mean, if that was a 5-round fight, he probably wins it. But 2 judges did give the first 2 rounds to Gastelum. So, I mean, that's how when that's how MMA scored. That's how the UFC scored. Maybe if it's 5 rounds, he wins, but that's just the sport. So, get over it.
Yep. Yeah, fair enough. I can't argue that. Well, that's all we have for our coverage of UFC 287. A fantastic card. I'm happy with how it ended. Very happy. And yeah, I look forward to more coverage of UFC. We got Allen and Holloway next week. That'll be fun. And then we got UFC 288 in the future to look forward to. So this train keeps rolling.
Choo choo.
Oh man. All right, we're gonna sign off. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
See you guys.
All right.